Welcome to the Women and Wealth podcast with Esther Sabo. Esther is a respected leader in the field of personal financial advice with over 25 years of experience. After going through her own significant and challenging life-changing events, she overcame fear and self-doubt to launch her own successful advisory firm. Now Esther is ready to share her practical and personal experiences to help other women clear their hurdles and brave life's transitions. In this way, she inspires women to lead fulfilling and confident lives.
Hello and welcome to Women and Wealth with Esther Sabo from Gates Past Advisors. Today I'm excited. Esther has a guest, and that is Erik Schei. Erik Schei is a Chartered Financial Analyst. Better yet, he's a new hire for Gates Past Advisors, so that's really exciting. And he has actually been in the industry for well over a decade. That's a long time. Esther, how are you?
I'm doing really well, Erik. I'm so excited that Erik Schei is here with us as part of the Gates Past team.
This won't be confusing at all.
No.
Okay, Erik, how are you? This is Erik.
I'm doing just great. Thank you.
Fantastic. Esther, he's a new hire. Why'd you bring him on? I mean, it sounds like he's got a ton of experience. That's fantastic.
He does have a ton of experience. Erik has mainly worked in the advisory practices of different advisors who they themselves are serving the clients on the front end. And Erik has a lot of experience helping them do that in the most efficient way. And yet Erik is a lifelong learner. He is eager to learn and be much more familiar with not only what's going on behind the scenes, but working with clients. And I brought him on. It was funny. I believe it was you and perhaps some other people who said, but you focus on women in transition. I'm surprised you brought on a man. And as I was going through the interview process, one of the things I really appreciated about Erik is that he was a great listener. And I experienced with him that I felt afterwards really energized and really excited about what he brought to the dialogue and to the conversation, just about the industry and where he sees things and how he responded to what we're doing here at Gates Pass. So those are a few reasons. His technical expertise, he can tell you a bit about what being a chartered financial analyst means, and his ease of conversation with him and his engagement. Those are just a few things. And if somebody has that, we all want to be listened to. And that will be a further topic of our conversation today.
That's great. Erik, I'm thinking that you're a little younger than I am. And if I had learned to be a good listener about 10 years ago, which I'm assuming you're about 10 years younger than me, that would have been great. It took me 20 some odd years of marriage to learn how to be a good listener. So you're way ahead of the curve. That's great. So what's your first impression of Gates Past Advisors? I mean, you're new.
Yeah.
You still got that new guy smell?
Yes, it's still kind of settling into the office and getting the workflows straight, and really it's very exciting. As Esther mentioned, a lot of my background has been in helping advisors like her run their businesses more efficiently on the back end. But
Nice.
over the last couple of years, I've had the opportunity to kind of on the side start working with clients directly and helping them kind of solve their financial problems. And I found that I just really have a passion for helping people plan for and achieve financial success and kind of clarifying their long-term financial picture. And so when I was speaking with Esther, she explained the business model and who she works best with. And really it really jived with what I was seeing in building my own book of business, was that I really worked best with people just in transition. That's really kind of the tipping point where clarity and the future is a little uncertain, and we can hop in there and use our experience to play translator and help them kind of settle down and work with them to not necessarily solidify, but plan for and create a little more certainty in their future.
Nice. That sounds great. I'm going to put you on the spot here just for a moment.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you said you worked with advisors, right? You
Mhm.
were working with advisors and helping them, and now you're working with individuals and families and helping them. no pressure that your boss is standing next to you, but who's better to work with? Who do you like working with more?
I certainly love
You
working
can whisper if you need to.
I love working with end clients far more than advisors.
Good for you. Way to be bold.
There's more of a personal aspect to it.
Yeah.
I really enjoy and get a lot of fulfillment out of solving business problems, but there's an emotional side to things, and just like anybody else, I crave relationship and community, and that's what you start to build when you're working with directly with clients, and you get into kind of their goals and hopes and dreams and issues, and work with them kind of as a team to solve those issues and further support their success.
Great. And I just met you, and so it's fun for me to ask a few questions, but I do not want to derail this time. Esther, I know you've got some information you want to share about this young man and all the work that he has done so far and the work that he's going to be doing. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, sure. We've been working together for all of a couple weeks at this point, and one of the things actually that's really fun for me to ask Erik about is about his family life. So, Erik, tell us a little bit about your home and family.
I'm married, and I have a 1.5-year-old son. And that is really just the center and the focal point of my life right now. I am just enjoying to no end the challenge and the excitement of raising my son. So that's it's been a great 1.5 years, and my wife and I just are giddy about it.
And what's been, if you were to reflect back on your transition experience, because that's a huge transition, adding a child into a marriage and all of that, no matter how much you said, yes, when you got together, this is something we both want to do. This is our vision. This is what we want to experience. What's been your experience as you go through actually, like, versus what you thought it would be like versus what it is like?
It's definitely about communication and setting expectations of each other. In going through this, we both knew that we had no idea what to expect. And so we have our own expectations, and really it was about expressing those to one another with the realization and the flexibility that, we could be completely off mark. And so while we kind of set our mark and put our stakes in the ground as far as what we think will happen, we both need to be aware and able to kind of shift those expectations and communicate that to one another. And really the communication was the key, because Chelsea, my wife, I are two very different communicators, and really as in planning for financial transitions in any relationship, understanding how the other, not only how you receive and present information, but also understanding how the other person receives and presents information. And so that, recognize that there's always room for miscommunication, and having the patience to kind of step it back and work through things together. And really just, making sure that expectations are known all the time, because the last thing we wanted was for somebody to have an expectation that I would play this role and not let her in on that conversation. And then she turns around and has a completely different view. And then you create friction there that you get to work through.
That's so interesting. That's not what I expected you to say. And so that's really great. That's one of the things with transition. I expected you to actually talk more about Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I really like about asking you, or even any client, a question: what's it like for you? Because in my head, I can make up a story. He's going to say, oh, Jackson was like this, or this is what he's doing, and this is how it's, but it's a completely different picture. It's like, actually, this is how it is for me and my wife. It really brought out another level of understanding in our relationship of what we need to do together to navigate this change and to talk to one another and listen. And so I really appreciate that perspective, because it feeds in so well to what I wanted to talk about a little bit more today. So the other thing, before we shift to that, Erik, I wanted to ask you, can you tell people a little bit about what it is to have the designation of Chartered Financial Analyst. I'm a certified financial planner. You are a chartered financial analyst. What's the difference?
So the Chartered Financial Analyst designation is really focused more around the investment aspects of finance. Really, if I were to wrap the program up into a short little statement, is that it teaches you how money works and how finance works and how you can use it as a tool. And so we spend a lot of time focusing on the analytics of digging into forecasting growth rates and pricing bonds and futures and understanding how to use all of these. I'll call them products. I hate that word for investments, but how to use all of these products to build a stable financial portfolio. And so really you spend 3 years taking 3 different tests on different aspects of the world of financial analysis. And at the end, you come out with a pretty solid understanding of what tools and levers you have to structure your investments so that they're acting how you need them to.
And as you know, here we don't build portfolios from the ground up. As we work with clients, we are helping them with their portfolios. We do portfolio management. And so what was attractive to you about Gates Pass, given that we don't do that and you have all this technical experience and knowledge? I mean, I will tell you for the audience, that's a tough designation to get. Not that I want to say CFP was easy, but just think, how long was your college education? For most people, it was 4 years or 5 years. This was college education plus another 3 years of very technical study and technical exams. So if you could just mention a bit about what is attractive about working here, given that we're not building portfolios from the ground up.
Well, I'm a big proponent of the idea that while you may not need to be the one using the tool, you should always know how it works at some level. And I just have a particular interest in how the tool of asset management works. And so I think that really adds some value in terms of selecting the managers and the asset allocation, because I have just kind of that next level understanding of what's going on in the background and how we can use these things maybe in a different way than other people are thinking. But so what I like about what we do at Gates Pass is that, we recognize that investments and asset allocation are just one piece of the financial picture. There's so much that goes into it. And I think a lot of people get myopically focused on returns and not necessarily by any fault of their own, because a lot of people sell what they're doing on returns. And it's just one small piece of the whole financial picture.
Absolutely. That really helps move us in. And honestly, for anyone listening, we didn't rehearse this in advance, I promise. Is what we're going to spend a few more minutes speaking about is there's been studies done in our industry and otherwise. There was a executive coach and training consultant who asked approximately 1,100 of her colleagues and friends who were from very different backgrounds, educationally, business-wise, socially, culturally. She asked them, and her name is Maureen Bridget Rabotin. She asked them, what does someone in your culture do that makes you feel respected? And just about every respondent came back, whether they were from Japan, the UK, France, Canada, the United States. I feel respected when someone listens to me. And Natixis did a survey in 2017 of US individual investors, and they found something very similar. What clients said they want most from their financial advisor is to be listened to. So between Erik and I, and it's very tricky in our industry because, Erik, we're often brought on to have technical expertise, right?
Absolutely.
So it is, and we're very addicted to providing technical expertise. And so we want to solve people's problems, like you said. We want to resolve what's going on for them. Yet here at Gates Pass, we have different tools that allow us to listen to clients, and we have a high value on hearing from clients what they want. Just like I mentioned a moment ago, when I asked, what's changed? And I had an expectation of what you would say. If I hadn't asked you, I would have just gone on with that expectation. And you said, oh my gosh, it's taught me so much. My wife and I, it really comes back to that issue of communication, understanding, expectations, navigating this different change together. So, one of the things that we do here, knowing that emotion guides decision making, I would like to just present a bit of a tip to those who are considering, especially women with financial advisors. We hear this a lot when women come in. I've heard it from other colleagues who say, I had a financial advisor, but I never felt like they listened to me. I never felt heard. They didn't ask me questions. They just assumed that I was here to soap up, to sponge up everything that they had to tell me. And it's really important. And we here provide a couple complimentary meetings to clients so that clients or prospective clients can see who can be present to listen to them from their personal perspective and provide the technical expertise.
Hey, Esther, can I jump in real quick?
Absolutely. This is the other Erik.
The other Erik. So here's the thing. And hi, Erik. How are you? Thanks for being here. No, the thing is that I've worked with advisors for many, many, many years, and you're spot on, because here's what happens, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion. So many of them, somebody goes to a store and you buy a calculator. And when you buy a calculator, it has a function. You type in numbers and you push some buttons, and you type in some more numbers and you push a button, and it gives you a result, right? That's the value of the calculator. And I think so many advisors want to show their value by the education they have, by the numbers they crunch, by the data they can show you, the charts, the pie graphs, the whatever, right? They want all this stuff. Okay, look what I built. Look at the equation I've done for you, but yet they didn't listen, or they don't take that time. And I'm not just sitting here blowing smoke or patting people on the back here, but the reason Esther brought Erik in, she said it from the very beginning, he listened. And that's exactly how Esther has built her entire practice. Esther, I love that about you. I love working with you because of that, because it's a rarity. And I think that that's truly, and maybe you will disagree or maybe you agree with me, but I think so many advisors get caught up in showing you the education I have by the product I can produce, meaning data, right? And I think that they miss the mark. Well, what do you think?
If I could hop in there as well, just to add, really, I think a lot of the training and the education that they receive is all working from an assumption of an institutional level. That you've got this big institution that has all of the capability in the world and can withstand X amount of risk for an almost infinite time frame, and so they can handle storms a little bit better than what individuals will. And then their investment process or their profile is static, and their decision making process and capabilities is all it's assuming a constantly logical and rational approach. And as you sit down and you talk with any number of clients, you find out very quickly that people have emotional biases, and if you approach them with the solely institutional and rational approach, you're going to start talking over their heads, or their eyes are going to gloss over.
Life isn't logical.
Exactly.
That's it.
That's it. And so it's about recognizing any potential biases or emotional effect to their decision making and how they're viewing things. And then it's about deciding, okay, are we going to try and educate and make the right move, or is this something we might be able to accommodate and just kind of smooth the edges a little bit?
Esther, you've talked about this a lot as far as, emotions guiding decision making. What are you going to pass on to Erik as he joins this team? What examples, or what can you pass on to Erik to show him kind of what you've dealt with clients? I mean, what examples do you have to show him to say, hey, here's an example of what happened. Here's the 5 different directions it could have gone, and here's the result and why it happened that way.
Well, that sounds like a term paper, Erik.
We've got another half an hour.
Well, we've been sharing appointments together from the beginning here,
Nice.
and I think he's seeing that already. We go through and I've talked about it before, but I think it's such a great tool. We go through communication preferences with each client, and we save them and review them. So we were just recently speaking with a relatively new client. He was coming on and we were looking at his financial planning. We just presented a draft of his financial plan. That was the primary, quote unquote, goal of the meeting. But prior to presenting it, we have a list, I think it's 17 different preferences. And we say, check off the ones that are most important to you. But it's not just a check the box exercise. So for example, one of the boxes that the client checked was encourage my input. That's really, in other words, that's so important to me that you encourage my input. And we don't just say, okay, great, that's nice to know, move on. We ask, so what is it like for you? What do you experience when your input isn't encouraged? What happens? And the person just said, I'll get very irritated. I'll feel ignored. Basically, I'll start to shut down. It'll be really hard for me to give any input from there because I'm starting with a deficit. Oh, that's so helpful to know because, again, if we're just so focused on what we were talking about earlier, look, here's your plan. We took all this data, we put it together, and we presenting it back to you. Isn't this great? I mean, we do get excited about it. Yet the person we lost them back at we have you living until age 100. And,
I just imagine that person on the other side of the desk saying, you didn't want to hear me 5 minutes ago. Now you want to ask me questions?
Yeah.
No, you don't want to listen 5 minutes ago. You're not listening now. Forget it.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Right.
Huh.
And all of us, again, in this technological age when there's emails and texts, et cetera, it's hard. We're all on very much short-term time frames. So if, again, just like you just said, if we miss a window, Erik and I have really missed an opportunity to go deeper with that client and get the feedback that we want to present a solution or a variety of solutions, because there are so many different answers with portfolio building, with investment planning, cash flow management. Erik and I had an experience this week where we had been referred a prospect. And we're talking to the prospect, and they are basically saying, you know what, we're doing great. We have everything sorted out. We've been working a strategy for this long. It's been great for us. And we just want to know that as we move forward over the next 5 years, we're going to start receiving our required minimum distributions from our IRAs and our Social Security. And how do we avoid taxes on that? And I talked a little bit more about how we work in terms of decision making and planning. And unfortunately, there's not a quick and easy answer to that. Well, I guess there always is a quick and easy answer, but will that be the most effective for these particular people? I don't know, because we can solve a problem technically, but we don't know, again, in terms of their own self, if we're going to set in motion unintentionally a consequence that won't work for them. So not every prospect is a fit with us. We're not ones where if somebody calls and says something like that, just take this slice of my planning and address it. We just look at things way too holistically for that.
Well, to be a good fiduciary, you have to. And if an advisor's not doing that, and they're just off the cuff response, oh well, here's something you should try. Ugh, that's terrible. They're not being a good fiduciary, and that's not somebody that you want to work with.
And I think what's unfortunate in the industry, because it's presented this way, as Erik was talking about earlier, it can be a lot about investment products, how we're doing investment products. And our philosophy here, as he mentioned, is investments are critical, but they are a part of the pie. They are maybe, I don't know, 40% of the pie, maybe not even that much.
That might be an overestimate.
Yeah.
Really, there just so much goes into that plan in terms of cash flow and spending and taxes. Taxes are often underweighted in client minds, but really you can do a lot in the planning of those other areas that will significantly affect the long-term effects on their financial portfolio.
And we were just meeting with another, I'm going to lose this point, but before I forget this point, we were meeting with a client together earlier this week, and she's like, I don't want any risk, no risk, no risk. And I said, well, we're working towards that. It's a long-term client where we are bringing down the risk. I mean, they're 15 years older than when I first started working with them. And we've had a wonderful run up in the US equities market for 10 years. We're not assuming that will continue in that way for another 10 years. So we're gradually bringing risk off, but we need to do it in a tax sensitive way. So I said, well, we could switch this off tomorrow and switch you into a completely different portfolio tomorrow. Do you want this much capital gains income? No. I don't want all those taxes. I don't want all those taxes. So we are navigating those different pieces together. And because the other point I wanted to make is our industry, so much people don't want to reach out to a financial advisor planner because they are so worried. They just want my assets. They just want my assets. They just want to manage my assets. So I don't even want to approach, because every solution they give me will have underneath, yes, we can answer that. And P.S., we have to manage your assets. And we have different options here for that, for being able to work with people on different levels so that they get the answers that they need, but we still meet with them on an ongoing basis continually to confirm that things are unfolding and moving forward as we had intended, and to be available when things change, because things change for everybody.
Esther, you spoke about communication preferences, and I got to tell you, I love that, because so many people overlook that one simple thing to do, but it's so powerful. Because, for instance, a lot of people celebrate when they get their email, the little red number on their phone. They celebrate when they get it to 0. My wife does that all the time. Oh, she got it all cleared out. But it drives her bananas, because the only time I celebrated recently was I was like, hey, honey, look at this. I was at 10,000. 10,000 emails, because I have 7 email accounts and I get so much spam, and I just picked up my phone to take a look at it. And today I'm celebrating 13,925.
Oh my goodness.
Wow. Email is not the way to connect with me. It never has been, never will be, because it's horrendous. If somebody wants to talk to me or my clients, they have a certain email that they use because it's private. However, nobody's going to be sending it to the other thing. So if somebody were to ask me that, the first thing I would tell them, I don't want any emails. I would like you to text me. I'd like you to call me. You can Skype me. There's so many other ways to get a hold of me. Don't email me, because I won't see it. It's filled with garbage at this point. I just want to burn it, really. So what else do you want to cover today about communication specifically?
Well, that's a really good lead-in, because that's one of the things we ask our clients. How do you want us to communicate with you in between meetings? What works well for you? What doesn't? Unfortunately, because of our industry limitations and regulations, we're not allowed to use texting. Because I do have people say, could you just text me? Because we're all getting overloaded with email. But we do say, is it a call, or just how can we work out a connection? And one of the other things that we ask clients is to fill in this sentence, to complete this sentence. When you work with me, please remember my tendency to blank and my need for blank. So you might fill that in, say, please remember my tendency to ignore email and my need for connection in a different way.
And my need for a phone call. Absolutely. That's fantastic.
Yeah, for live. This, I'm using the example of this client that I was talking about earlier. What he responded is, please remember my tendency to ask, to clarify, and my need for understanding of financial terms used. So helpful.
Yeah.
That affects us in such a way when we're preparing to meet with this person. We are making assumptions now that they will ask questions, that they will need time and space for those questions. Again, encourage my input, that we will ask them, is this clear? What are you thinking about what you're seeing? It's not the same for everybody. really, we have other clients who say, please remember my tendency to worry about money and my need for affirmation that I'm going to be okay. It's not the same for different decision makers who handle decisions in a whole different way. So building understanding of the client and how we can be most effective for them is so critical. And it really reduces the emotions that come up during decision making that can cause us to make decisions or retreat from making decisions that are critical to our living lives of confidence and well-being.
That's powerful. That is awesome. I want to close with one thing. I know we're wrapping up. Erik, I will tell you this. I've worked with thousands of advisors over the years. Esther is in the top 3, guaranteed. You are blessed, my friend, to be working with her. Just listening to her on this podcast, you know why. So I think it's fantastic. Welcome to the team. I'll tell you that right now.
Thank you.
Esther, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Erik. It's always a pleasure.
Absolutely. I love it. All right. And thank you all for listening to the Women in Wealth podcast with Esther Szabo. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Esther comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. This makes it much easier to share these podcasts with your friends and family. Again, thanks for listening today. For everyone at Gates Pass Advisors, this is Erik Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Women and Wealth podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you receive notifications of new podcasts as they become available. Check out the website at www.gatespassadvisors.com for more information. This content is developed from sources believed to be providing accurate information. The information in this material is not intended as tax or legal advice. Please consult legal or tax professionals for specific information regarding your individual situation. The opinions expressed and material provided are for general information and should not be considered a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security.